let's talk a little bit about passing chords. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back away from chords. We're going to talk a little bit about different types of melodic motion, and then we're going to connect that together with chords and sort of this idea of passing chords and neighbor chords, because I feel like it's good to know those two things together, and how you can apply them to your own music and not just use them as just a chord, but treat them as sort of what they can be. So let me grab our trusty friend float key right here. And let's, for the moment, live in the world of C major. In C major, counting the steps is pretty easy. You just go white note to white note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get back to C, you get a 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You go back to C, you get 1. Nice and easy. When we're looking at the relationships of notes in a melody, we look at them in terms of steps and leaps. A step is just moving to the next number. 1 to 2 is a neighbor. 2 to 3, that is a neighbor. 2 to 1, that is also a neighbor. It's a step. Anything that's not a step is a leap. So if you're going in any form of addition or subtraction that is greater than 1, it's a leap. 1 to 3, that's a leap. 1 to 4, that's a leap. 4 to 6, that's a leap. 6 to 3, that is a leap. All of those are leaps. There is a sequence of steps in between them that we're skipping over, right? So I'm stepping up, and then I take a leap, step down, leap up, step down, step down, step down, leap up, leap down. We can describe all of these different notes, or all these different melodies that we're used to listening to, as sequences of steps and leaps. You can look at a melodic device as going to see a neighbor. This is my next door neighbor. If I'm just going to my next door neighbor and coming back, it's not really that far of a walk. So, melodically, we would call this a neighbor tone. Yeah, Ruby, you can think about it that way. I need to go get sugar. I forgot sugar. I'm making a cake. Let me step over to my neighbor's house. Hey, D, can I have a cup of sugar? Sure thing, C. You come back. C is Carter, D is Dre. So, next C is Dre. So right now we're having a conversation. Carter and Dre. Carter's making some sugar, or is making a cake. He needs some sugar. Hey Dre, can you give me a cup of sugar? Sure thing. Now, let's say Carter just finished his cake and he wants to go share it with his neighbors. First, he would absolutely want to go see Dre and say, thank you for the sugar. Here's a slice of cake. I'm going to go give one to our neighbor, Emma. To get to Emma, Carter has to pass through his neighbor Dre's yard, or in front of his neighbor's yard. He's not going to just jump over the fence. He wants to go give Dre a slice of cake for thanking him. So he is doing a passing motion through D on his way to E. He's not leaping. He's not trying to avoid Dre. He's passing through. So if you step to your neighbor, that's a neighbor tone. If you pass through your neighbor on the way to the next neighbor, or on the way to another neighbor, you could go. But that's not super common. We're trying to stick within the world of neighbors, of steps right now. So we're stepping and passing through to our next neighbor. Now, what if I take those notes that I just had and I made them into full chords? If I move from my Carter chord, my C chord, over to my Dre chord, my D chord, I have a neighbor chord. We're only stepping to the side and coming back. We've returned home. If that neighbor chord now acts as a conduit for us to pass through to our next chord, we have a passing chord. Stick around for the counterpoint thing next week, because these will all become very connected. I really want to start to build into your understanding of chords this idea of melodic motion. Because if we look at this motion of this passing chord, we could look at it as that melodic motion combined with that melodic motion combined with that melodic motion, all happening at the same time to create this unified, harmonious motion of voices. So how can we use passing chords? One way, you can use them as resetting devices in a sense. So like, let's use a pretty popular chord progression. Let's use the chord progression for Get Lucky. The sound of the summer, right? Well, one way to add passing chords into this chord progression just like that, we've added in like at least 3 or 4 more chords into the progression just kind of on accident, and the chords themselves don't carry harmonic purpose. I want to be very clear on that. In terms of functional harmony, in terms of analyzing the chords, you could go in and you could say, well, this chord is representing, like a substitute tonic. This chord is representing a substitute dominant, blah, blah, blah. This is working here. But really, all that's happening is we have these little melodic devices. We're using these little melodic tools of neighbor tones and passing tones to get from here to here. That chord's just right in the middle. Just allows you to treat chords as flavor, not just as function, right? You can use them as a way to create a variation in different sections. I've been listening to a lot of old pop punk, and I've been learning that Mayday Parade song Jersey, and it uses the pop chord progression in kind of the emotional version of it. The 4 chord progression being that right there. A 1, 5, 6, 4. Exactly. But if I start on the 6 chord, that is considered kind of like the minor version of the pop progression. I'm going to transpose this to B flat minor, because that's what the key of the Mayday Parade song is in. But it's the same exact chord progression. We have this. Same exact chord progression. the minor chord, the minor 6, or in this case the minor 1, to the minor 6, or to the major 6, the major 2, the minor 7, or a 1, 5, 6, 4 in the key of D flat major. The structure of the song has two different, well, actually technically has 3 different chord progressions. What I just played was the chorus chord progression, when they're doing the Jersey just got colder and I'll have you know I'm scared to death that everything that you had said to me was just a lie until you left. Anyways, between D and D sharp and D sharp minor. Okay, so D is this note, D sharp is that note, D flat is that note. But that's the difference. D minor and D major is the whole thing. After that chord progression, the chorus, we have this post-chorus chord progression of and we move into the verse chord progression, which is basically just a bunch of passing chords. Neighbor chord, passing chord, and then it goes into the chorus again with the same chord progression. But by utilizing the same chords, but their positioning being just kind of one passing through the other, where this A flat major chord right here is really only existing to bring us between this B flat minor and this G sharp, or excuse me, this G flat minor. And it gives you essentially 2 whole new chord progressions that you don't actually have to learn, because it's basically just modifying one after the other. And the other big place I find myself using chord progression, or using passing chords, you might not want to use them here yourselves, is as kind of like an anticipation chord, in a sense. Like if I have that that same chord progression, what I can do is I can actually use a kind of a cheeky passing chord, and this is something that, again, it's not going to work for everyone in every situation, but if I just modify this chord to be a chromatic passing chord, I've just given myself this little melodic push to say, hey, we're really going to reset the loop. We have this kind of simple chord progression and just turning one chord a little bit closer in this sense, where I'm taking this note right here. This turns this A flat major chord into an A diminished, and an A diminished is the leading tone chord, or the 7 chord to B flat major, but it also works for B flat minor because of that whole fun secondary dominant thing. I love diminished chords. I think it sounds great. But like I said, that is something that I like. That's a flavor that I enjoy. Mostly because in this chord progression, I get to kind of hint at this right here. That 5/7. I like 5/7s. They're cheesy, but I like them. So that is just a couple of ways you can apply passing chords into your chord progressions. Realistically, I don't treat them as chords in and of themselves. That's why I really want to stress what I mentioned at the beginning when we're just looking at the melodies, the passing tones, and the neighbor tones, because you can have a neighbor chord as well, right? So in those cases, they aren't quite as impactful. So they can just be sprinkled in. They're like salt and pepper. They're seasoning in that sense. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you have any ways that you use passing chords that I don't talk about, please drop them in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell. Do all the YouTube stuff. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. Maybe check me out on Patreon. And this will be where we cut the video.